The human brain is capable of incredible feats, yet most of us sabotage our potential by avoiding the very challenges that could shape us. Today you will learn the science and strategies to train your mind to tackle difficult tasks, overcome resistance, and build unwavering mental strength. By the end of this video, you'll understand practical methods to rewire your brain, harness discomfort, and turn every struggle into a stepping stone toward mastery. Stick with us, and you'll discover actionable habits that you can implement immediately to grow resilience, focus, and discipline in every area of life. This is not just motivation, it's a roadmap to actual transformation, designed to help your brain perform at its peak when it matters most. Subscribe to Audiobook Tone for more life-changing strategies, practical advice, and insights that will help you unlock your fullest potential. Every week, we bring powerful lessons from the world's best audiobooks straight to you, so you can grow, learn, and achieve without wasting time. Number 1. Rewire neural pathways through challenge. A brain that bends toward ease will never learn the architecture of strength. Each time comfort is chosen over strain, neural highways are reinforced for avoidance. Each time challenge is chosen, new pathways are carved. Slow at first, then sturdier with repeated traffic. This chapter is a practical map for carving those pathways, how to invite difficult tasks, how to convert small, deliberate stress into lasting mental muscle, and how to design daily rituals that rewire the nervous system toward resilience. The approach is quiet, disciplined, and profoundly practical. It asks for steady action, not inspiration, and for small, persistent courage rather than dramatic heroics. Neuroplasticity is not magic, it is a natural law. The brain changes in response to demand. When a task requires attention, the neurons that fire together start to wire together. The more a specific pattern of thought or behavior is practiced, the more automatic it becomes. That is good news. Habits of avoidance can be replaced by habits of engagement. The method is straightforward. Apply challenge with intention, practice with repetition, rest to consolidate, then escalate just enough to be uncomfortable but not crushed. The key word is progressive. Extreme stress breaks, calibrated stress builds. Begin with a clear, testable experiment. Choose one hard thing that feels meaningful and measurable. A 20-minute daily focused work block on an important project, a single set of a difficult physical movement, or a daily 5-minute cold exposure. Commit to this trial for 3 weeks. 3 weeks is short enough to make the trial tolerable and long enough to observe change. Write down the exact parameters: when, where, how long, and what counts as success. This is not motivation dependent. The schedule and the criteria carry the work when desire falters. A concrete routine anchors neural change. Build the challenge into the existing structure of the day. Habit stacking is simple neuroscience. Attach the new hard practice to an existing stable cue. After pouring morning coffee, sit for the 20-minute focus block. After brushing teeth, step into the cold shower for 30 seconds. The cue triggers the action until it becomes less of a choice and more of an automatic sequence. Use an implementation intention. When X happens, I will do Y. Put that sentence in a visible place. Execution matters more than planning. Make the plan unavoidable. Design the challenge with progressive overload, borrowed from strength training. If the first day is too easy, it will not change wiring. If it is too hard, it will cause retreat. Start at the edge of capability, the smallest increment beyond current comfort that still causes strain. If meditating, add 30 seconds to the usual time. If writing, require 250 focused words instead of 100. If training physically, add 5 pounds or 2 more reps. Each successful edge slightly increases the brain's tolerance for discomfort. Track it. Progress becomes undeniable when recorded. Use deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is focused, feedback-driven, and uncomfortable by design. It requires a clear goal, immediate feedback, and repetition. For mental tasks, create micro-feedback loops. Set a timer, measure output, evaluate quality, and then iterate. For physical tasks, film performance, or use a mirror and correct one error at a time. The brain cannot refine what it cannot perceive. Make the errors visible and fix them deliberately. This is how neural circuits learn to execute with precision. Apply stress in varied contexts to encourage generalized resilience. Neural change that only lives in a single room or a single time of day can be brittle. If the only time a person practices discipline is in the morning, any disruption to the morning will collapse the habit. Practice the same hard skills under different conditions, different locations, different noise levels, different emotional states. Do the focused work on a train, in a park, and at a desk. Do the cold exposure after exercise, before work and on weekends. These varied stresses develop adaptable circuits, not single-use tricks. Create short, sharp exposures rather than long, chaotic ones. The brain learns better from repeated short challenges than from occasionally long, draining sessions. 10 minutes of targeted struggle each day compounds far more than a single 3-hour push on the weekend. Short exposures allow recovery and prevent overwhelm. Schedule recovery with equal intention. Sleep, nutrition, and moments of quiet are not indulgences. They are the soil in which the new pathways root. Without consolidation during rest, the gains remain shallow. Narrative and meaning matter. The same challenge becomes different when framed as growth rather than punishment. Adopt a stoic frame. Obstacles are the training grounds of character. When the body tightens before difficulty, name the feeling plainly. This is discomfort. This is proof of change. Then perform the small act anyway. That momentary naming reduces the emotional charge and routes attention toward action. Keep a short daily journal of wins and sensations. The sensory detail, the chill of the shower, the tension in the shoulders during the first tense minute, the taste of breath during focused work, anchors the mind in the reality of practice and turns abstract progress into lived truth. Use micro goals and micro rewards to reinforce early wiring. The brain responds to immediate signals. Pair the hard work with a small, immediate, non-destructive reward. 5 minutes of reading a favorite poem, a single square of dark chocolate, or a 2-minute walk outside. Do not substitute the reward for the work. The rule, reward follows effort. Over time, the internal value of the effort increases and the external reward can fade. The reward serves as a bridge until intrinsic motivation emerges. Fail forward. The best training plans assume failure and make it informative. Missed days will occur, energy will dip, and life will intervene. When failure happens, observe without drama. What triggered the lapse? Was the cue absent? Was the workload unrealistic? Was there physical fatigue? Make one precise adjustment and continue. This is process thinking, not self-judgment. Each failure becomes data about how to design a system that resists future failure. A single corrective tweak will often be sufficient. Change the time of day, reduce the length slightly, or adjust the cue to a stronger anchor. Monitoring and feedback accelerate the rewiring process. Use simple metrics, days completed, minutes of focused work, reps performed, or seconds of cold exposure. Visual trackers like a calendar with large X's create momentum. The human brain loves patterns. Visible streaks leverage losses aversion in a productive way. Weekly reflection is crucial. Spend 5 minutes every Sunday reviewing what worked, what did not, and what will be changed. This is the stoic exercise of examining the day and planning for tomorrow. Cultivate cognitive tools to ride the discomfort wave. 2 practical techniques. Accelerate tolerance, labeling, and breath control. When difficulty mounts, name the sensation precisely. Tightness in chest, racing thoughts, urge to check phone. Naming reduces its power. Then use a simple breath pattern. Inhale for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6. This slows the sympathetic surge and routes resources back to the prefrontal cortex. Combine naming and breathing before recommencing the task. The brain rewards the body for returning to task after a short modulation. Each recovery is a wiring opportunity. Finally, pursue variety within deep practice. The brain grows most when challenged with novelty that is still connected to a core skill. If the target is focus, practice different types of attention, analytic reading, sustained creative writing, and mindful observation. If the target is courage, take on physical, social, and intellectual risks at different times. Novelty forces the nervous system to recruit more neurons and to build broader networks. Over time, these networks become robust and transferable. The work of rewiring is slow and accumulative. There will be days when the brain fights like an old guard resisting change. Show up anyway. The daily repetition of small intentional discomforts will be invisible in the moment and undeniable in the long run. The mind that is trained in this manner becomes reliable, not impressive in a single dramatic feat, but steady, patient, and ready when life demands more than comfort can provide. Action steps to start today. Pick one hard small task, write its exact parameters, and attach it to a stable cue. Set a timer for a short, edge-level session. Do the session, record it on a visible tracker. Use one small reward after completion. Reflect for 5 minutes on what changed. Repeat daily. Escalate weekly by the smallest useful amount. And preserve rest. Over time, the process will shift from willpower to wiring. The brain will change shape. The hard things that once required monumental effort will begin to feel like the new normal. A disciplined mind is not born. It is carved, inch by daily choice. The path is clear. Invite calibrated challenge, practice deliberately, vary the context, rest to consolidate, and attend to feedback. The reward is not only strength and capability, but the quiet assurance that a life can be lived on purpose, one deliberate action at a time. Number 2. Harness discomfort to boost resilience. Life does not present growth on a silver platter. Every meaningful achievement is forged in the crucible of unease. Discomfort is not a flaw to be avoided. It is the raw material of strength. The ability to lean into difficulty, to sit with it and move through it, is the foundation of resilience. Resilience is not simply surviving hardship. It is thriving because of it, learning to transform strain into structure and stress into strategy. The process begins with understanding the physiology and psychology of discomfort, then using that understanding to intentionally stretch the limits of mental and emotional endurance. Discomfort often appears first as a whisper, a hesitation, a sense of resistance, a subtle internal rebellion against effort. That whisper is a signal from the nervous system. Something challenging is present. Most people instinctively recoil from it, seeking soothing distractions, avoidance, or quick fixes. But each retreat reinforces a neural pattern that favors ease over growth. Instead, notice discomfort as a compass pointing directly toward development. The body's tight muscles, racing heart, or queasy stomach during an important task are not enemies. They are indicators that change is occurring. The first step in harnessing discomfort is to stop labeling it as bad and start interpreting it as productive. A practical method is progressive exposure. Begin with small doses of manageable difficulty. The purpose is not to shock the system, but to acquaint it with challenge. For example, if social anxiety prevents speaking up in a meeting, start by contributing a single sentence or question in a low-pressure context. Gradually increase exposure until the body no longer signals panic at the same level of effort. The mind learns that discomfort is temporary, that survival is possible, and that growth is the result of consistent engagement. Incremental expansion of limits creates a compounding effect, quietly building resilience over time. The next layer involves intentional discomfort and physical routines. The body and mind are intertwined. Physical strain translates to mental resilience. Cold exposure, high-intensity exercise, or deliberately extending effort beyond comfort teach the nervous system that enduring temporary stress is not catastrophic. Cold showers, for instance, provide an immediate and tangible discomfort, producing a surge of adrenaline that can be observed, studied, and then regulated. The initial shock fades with repetition, leaving behind a sense of mastery over one's internal reaction. These small, controlled encounters with strain cultivate the ability to tolerate larger challenges without fear. Discomfort is most useful when it is framed with purpose. Random suffering has little value. Deliberate discomfort is transformational. The brain responds to context. When struggle is associated with a meaningful goal, the neural response shifts from panic to engagement. This framing can be reinforced through visualization. Imagine yourself handling adversity calmly, navigating tension with focus, or thriving in situations that once produced stress. Mental rehearsal strengthens the neural circuits needed to translate actual experience into composed action. Over time, the nervous system begins to interpret strain as opportunity rather than threat. Emotional regulation plays a central role in harnessing discomfort. The mind naturally resists tension through avoidance, distraction, or justification. Each act of avoidance, however, reinforces the perception that discomfort is unbearable. Instead, actively naming and observing the emotional response creates a buffer between impulse and reaction. Identify feelings precisely. This is anxiety in my chest. This is frustration rising in my mind. Or this is boredom tempting me to quit. Naming transforms raw emotion into data. This simple act allows rational thought to reassert control, turning transient stress into a structured challenge rather than an overwhelming force. Building a routine that incorporates voluntary discomfort is essential. Structure amplifies the effect of intentional strain. Set aside daily or weekly practices that push the boundaries of patience, endurance, or focus. It might be a workout that exceeds usual intensity, an uncomfortable conversation, or a deliberate period of fasting or mental focus without distractions. The repetition of these experiences rewires expectations. The body and mind come to anticipate stress as normal rather than exceptional, preparing the system for unexpected pressures that inevitably arise. Reflection enhances the impact of each session of discomfort. After completing a challenging task, spend time analyzing the sensations, thoughts, and strategies used. What was difficult? What reactions arose? How did the mind shift from avoidance to engagement? Writing these observations solidifies learning and reinforces the association between effort and growth. Reflection turns raw experience into structured knowledge, converting each encounter with discomfort into a lasting asset for future challenges. Discomfort also cultivates adaptability. Life is inherently unpredictable, and resilience depends on flexibility. Exposing oneself to controlled stress teaches the nervous system to adjust rapidly to changing circumstances. When the mind has been trained to tolerate moderate unease daily, unexpected setbacks feel less catastrophic. This adaptive resilience extends to emotional, cognitive, and social domains. The more often one experiences controlled adversity, the more the mind becomes capable of maintaining equilibrium in the face of uncertainty. Accountability amplifies the benefits of harnessing discomfort. Publicly committing to challenging goals or sharing progress with a mentor or peer creates a social reinforcement mechanism. Discomfort is easier to embrace when paired with responsibility. The fear of letting others down reinforces the internal drive to persist. Accountability does not replace self-mastery, but it enhances consistency, ensuring that exposure to difficulty is deliberate and sustained rather than sporadic or optional. Gratitude transforms discomfort into a source of empowerment. Recognize the privilege of having the opportunity to practice challenge deliberately. The ability to choose struggle in a controlled way is a rare gift compared to the unexpected adversity many face. Viewing difficult exercises as opportunities rather than punishments shifts perspective. Gratitude reframes effort, imbuing it with meaning and producing intrinsic motivation. The mind begins to crave growth rather than avoiding it. Over time, the cumulative effect of these practices is profound. Tasks that once caused anxiety, hesitation, or dread become manageable. The nervous system grows accustomed to strain, neural pathways are strengthened, and confidence becomes rooted in demonstrated capability rather than empty reassurance. This resilience is not fleeting. It is embedded in the structure of thought, emotion, and physical response. It becomes a reliable internal resource, accessible whenever life demands more than ease can provide. The process is never-ending. Each layer of challenge conquered reveals new boundaries. Discomfort is an infinite well of growth. The more one drinks, the more the system is capable of handling. Purposeful exposure, reflection, physical strain, emotional regulation, and accountability work together to create a mind and body prepared for sustained success. The capacity to navigate discomfort becomes a defining characteristic, differentiating those who merely react to life from those who shape it intentionally. Immediate action is the bridge between concept and change. Identify one small but meaningful discomfort today. Step into it deliberately, fully aware of the sensations, emotions, and thoughts it evokes. Observe the process, record insights, and gradually expand the intensity or duration, but always maintain deliberate focus. Each encounter with unease strengthens tolerance, forges new neural pathways, and reinforces the habit of facing life directly. Small, consistent acts compound into enduring resilience. The cultivation of resilience through discomfort is a quiet revolution of the self. It requires courage to begin, patience to persist, and clarity to understand the value of strain. The nervous system thrives on challenge, not comfort. By intentionally embracing the moments that push against ease, the mind learns to navigate life with composure, confidence, and adaptability. Discomfort ceases to be a threat. It becomes the engine of growth, the proving ground for character, and the forge where resilience is created. This approach does not glorify suffering. It channels it. It transforms ordinary resistance into a structured path toward personal strength. Each deliberate engagement with discomfort is a vote for the person one wishes to become, capable, calm under pressure, and unwavering in pursuit of meaningful goals. Harnessing discomfort is ultimately the act of reclaiming power over the internal environment, training the mind to respond to difficulty, not with avoidance, but with deliberate, disciplined action, day after day. Number 3. Visualize effort before actual execution. Before any great act of discipline, performance, or endurance, the mind quietly rehearses the path ahead. Visualization is not fantasy. It is a rehearsal of reality in which the brain practices the effort itself. The neurons fire in patterns almost identical to those used in actual execution, creating a neural blueprint that makes the eventual task smoother, more precise, and less intimidating. By vividly imagining the sequence, sensations, and challenges of an upcoming task, the mind primes the body, sharpens focus, and cultivates the confidence necessary to act decisively. This practice transforms preparation into performance before a single step is physically taken. Begin by selecting a task that requires sustained effort, concentration, or skill. It could be a challenging project, a physically demanding activity, or a difficult conversation. The goal is to replicate every element in your mind as closely as possible. Sit quietly in a space free from distraction. Close your eyes and immerse yourself in the scenario. See the environment in precise detail, the textures, colors, sounds, and smells. The brain cannot fully distinguish between detailed imagination and real experience, and this distinction allows visualization to strengthen the exact neural pathways necessary for actual performance. Next, focus on the sequence of actions required to complete the task. Break it down into individual steps, and imagine performing each with care. Notice the smallest details, the way hands move, the angle of the body, the rhythm of breathing, or the articulation of words. Include the subtle decisions and adjustments that will inevitably arise. Anticipate the moments when difficulty emerges, and see yourself responding deliberately. This is not wishful thinking, but methodical mental training. The mind rehearses problem solving, error correction, and persistence. By confronting obstacles mentally first, the actual execution feels less daunting and more navigable. Incorporate emotional states into visualization. Effort is never purely mechanical. It carries tension, uncertainty, and occasional frustration. Sense these emotions vividly, then see yourself managing them with calm precision. Notice the body's natural reactions to stress: increased heart rate, tightened muscles, racing thoughts. Visualize the conscious techniques you will employ to regulate these responses: deep, controlled breathing, steady pacing, or focused attention. Preparing emotionally reduces the likelihood that surprise or anxiety will derail performance. When the mind is ready for the emotional weight of a challenge, the body responds more efficiently and the task feels achievable. Sensory richness magnifies the effectiveness of visualization. The more senses engaged, the more realistic and potent the rehearsal becomes. Hear the subtle sounds around you, feel the textures under your hands or feet, smell the environment, and even sense the temperature or air movement. The neural circuits activated by sensory-rich imagination closely mimic those engaged during real execution. Each rehearsal strengthens muscle memory, sharpens focus, and develops anticipation for the physical or cognitive demands of the task. Repetition of this process creates a mental muscle, making real-world challenges less intimidating. Use mental simulation to explore multiple scenarios. The path to success is rarely linear. Unexpected obstacles will appear. In your visualization, deliberately introduce challenges, errors, interruptions, fatigue, or missteps. Imagine responding calmly, problem-solving creatively, and persisting without giving in to frustration. Rehearsing adversity ensures that the brain develops flexible strategies and adaptive responses. When these scenarios arise in reality, the mind is not startled or paralyzed. Instead, it draws upon the mental rehearsal to navigate smoothly and maintain effectiveness. Visualization also accelerates learning by creating familiarity with effort. Tasks that initially feel awkward, difficult, or intimidating become more fluid when rehearsed mentally. The mind learns the rhythm, timing, and coordination of complex sequences without the physical strain. For example, athletes, musicians, and performers frequently report improved execution after mental practice alone. Similarly, approaching cognitive or professional tasks with detailed rehearsal reduces hesitation, streamlines decision-making, and increases confidence. The act of imagining effort builds competence before the first physical attempt, allowing the first real effort to be less hesitant and more deliberate. Pair visualization with physical cues to reinforce learning. Subtle gestures, posture adjustments, or breathing patterns during mental rehearsal can link imagination with bodily action. For example, visualize lifting a weight while holding your hands in position, or imagine speaking with a particular tone while practicing that tone softly. These small alignments integrate mind and body, making the translation from thought to action seamless. The result is a state of preparedness where execution feels natural and controlled, even under stress. Consistency is critical. Visualization is not a one-time shortcut. It is a disciplined practice that compounds over time. Daily mental rehearsal, even for 5 or 10 minutes, primes the nervous system for action, gradually making the effort feel familiar and manageable. The first few sessions may feel strange or abstract, but persistence cultivates clarity and precision. The brain begins to anticipate sequences, adapt to challenges, and regulate emotions, creating a stable foundation upon which real-world performance can be built. Reflection after physical or cognitive execution amplifies the benefits. After completing the task in reality, compare it with the mental rehearsal, which imagines steps matched actual experience. Where did discrepancies arise? What emotional reactions were unanticipated? This feedback loop strengthens the mental map, allowing future visualizations to be more precise and effective. Over time, the accuracy of visualization improves, and the brain's ability to translate mental rehearsal into flawless execution grows exponentially. Visualization also cultivates patience and endurance. Effort often requires sustained attention and repetitive action. By mentally rehearsing prolonged engagement, the mind learns to tolerate monotony and maintain focus. Imagine the incremental progress, the small adjustments, and the steady persistence required to complete extended tasks. Rehearsing endurance teaches the nervous system to sustain performance, reducing fatigue and mental drift when the challenge is real. The mind's response to uncertainty is altered by visualization. Fear of the unknown can paralyze action. By simulating effort in varying conditions, unexpected interruptions, and imperfect circumstances, the brain learns that adaptation is possible. Mental practice of scenarios that deviate from the ideal outcome creates confidence that obstacles are adaptable, not insurmountable. This builds a robust, adaptable mindset that thrives despite unpredictability. Visualization also promotes efficiency. When a task is mentally rehearsed thoroughly, the mind recognizes unnecessary motions, distractions, and errors before they occur. Anticipating these elements reduces wasted energy and refines execution. The brain begins to operate with foresight rather than reaction, making effort feel smoother and more controlled. The combination of foresight, emotional preparation, and strategic anticipation transforms potentially chaotic or stressful tasks into structured, manageable efforts. Pair visualization with deep breathing to anchor focus. Controlled, deliberate breath during mental rehearsal enhances attention, engages the parasympathetic nervous system, and reinforces the sensation of calm competence. Breathing while imagining effort links mind and body, strengthening the connection between intention and action. Over time, this integration allows for effortless engagement with challenging tasks, where focus, poise, and energy flow harmoniously. Ultimately, visualizing transforms perception of effort. Tasks that once appeared overwhelming or complex begin to feel understandable and achievable. The brain interprets rehearsal as prior experience, reducing fear, increasing confidence, and allowing effort to be embraced rather than avoided. The nervous system enters a state of preparedness, emotional regulation is enhanced, and cognitive clarity is sharpened. Mental rehearsal becomes a rehearsal for resilience itself. Action steps for immediate application. Select one task that requires effort. Sit quietly in a distraction-free space. Vividly imagine every detail of executing the task, including actions, emotions, sensory inputs. Rehearse obstacles and responses. Integrate subtle physical cues or breathing. Repeat daily afterward. Reflect on the match between imagination and execution. Adjust visualization to improve precision. Gradually increase complexity, intensity, or duration. This disciplined mental rehearsal compounds over time, producing an ability to perform with confidence, focus, and adaptability under real-world conditions. The power of visualization is subtle yet profound. By mentally walking through effort before execution, the mind reduces uncertainty, strengthens neural pathways, and develops both competence and composure. Each rehearsal is a rehearsal for mastery, each imagined challenge a training ground for resilience, and each day of consistent practice a step toward effortless execution. The brain learns that effort is navigable, that difficulty can be managed, and that success is a product of preparation, not chance. Over time, visualization transforms mental strain into an ally, turning anticipation into confidence and potential into achievement. Number 4. Reward incremental progress consistently daily. Progress is rarely sudden. It accumulates quietly, imperceptibly in the small actions taken each day. The brain responds to feedback, recognizing patterns and linking effort with results. When progress is acknowledged and rewarded consistently, neural pathways strengthen, motivation deepens, and momentum begins to build naturally. Small victories, when observed and reinforced, create a chain reaction that propels continued effort, transforming daunting goals into achievable milestones. The process of rewarding incremental progress is not about indulgence or instant gratification. It is a disciplined practice designed to reinforce focus, perseverance, and mastery over the long term. Begin by identifying the smallest measurable components of any goal. Large ambitions often feel overwhelming because the brain perceives them as too complex to manage in one stretch. Breaking the goal into discrete, actionable steps allows progress to be seen and tracked. Completing each step, no matter how minor, provides a tangible sense of accomplishment. This tangible recognition is critical because the brain responds more readily to observable outcomes than abstract ideas. Each small step becomes a signal that effort is effective, reinforcing the behavior and encouraging continued action. Consistency is paramount. Progress must be acknowledged every day, even when external circumstances make results seem minimal. Daily reinforcements solidifies the habit loop. Effort leads to reward. Reward reinforces behavior, and behavior becomes automatic over time. This consistency prevents motivation from fluctuating solely based on large or immediate results, creating resilience that carries through challenges and distractions. Even on days when effort feels insufficient, recognizing and rewarding any measurable progress ensures that the neural pathways supporting discipline continue to grow stronger. Rewards do not have to be extravagant. They should be meaningful, immediate, and proportionate to the effort made. A short walk, a cup of tea, a few minutes of reading, or simply a private acknowledgement of achievement can serve as effective reinforcement. The reward is not the ultimate goal. It is a tool for reinforcing the association between consistent action and positive feedback. Over time, intrinsic satisfaction emerges, and the brain begins to derive pleasure from the act of progress itself, reducing reliance on external incentives. Tracking progress visually amplifies the effect of rewards. A calendar, chart, or checklist provides immediate observable evidence of effort over time. Crossing off a completed task, marking a milestone, or noting improvement creates a sense of accomplishment that is psychologically powerful. The visual representation of progress reinforces the brain's internal reward system, producing motivation that compounds as streaks grow longer and achievements accumulate. The physical act of recording progress, even briefly, strengthens the commitment to continue. Reflection enhances the value of incremental rewards. At the end of each day, pause to review what was accomplished and how it contributes to larger objectives. Consider what worked well, what required effort, and where adjustments might improve performance. This reflection transforms routine actions into deliberate learning experiences, creating a feedback loop that promotes continuous improvement. By acknowledging even minor successes, the brain internalizes the connection between effort and outcome, making future effort feel both meaningful and manageable. Emotional reinforcement plays a central role. When progress is recognized, the brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation. This chemical response not only provides a feeling of satisfaction, but also strengthens memory and learning related to the task. By deliberately rewarding small wins, the brain learns to associate effort with positive emotion, increasing the likelihood of repeating the behavior. Over time, this produces a resilient drive, where the anticipation of progress itself becomes motivating. Incremental rewards also mitigate the psychological burden of large goals. Long-term achievements often feel unattainable when viewed as a single entity. Rewarding small steps divides the journey into manageable segments, reducing stress, frustration, and procrastination. The cumulative effect of many small wins creates a sense of momentum, allowing the brain to perceive steady forward movement, even when the final goal remains distant. This perception of progress is critical in maintaining discipline over extended periods of effort. Pairing rewards with specific cues enhances consistency. Link the recognition of progress to a stable time or trigger each day. For example, after completing the day's work block, perform a brief celebratory ritual. Note the accomplishment, stretch, or enjoy a small treat. This cue reward sequence reinforces habit formation, ensuring that progress is acknowledged automatically, rather than left to fluctuating willpower. The brain begins to anticipate reward immediately after effort, solidifying the connection between action and positive outcome. The practice of rewarding incremental progress also fosters patience. Real change and mastery are the results of sustained effort, not single achievements. By focusing on small, repeated victories, individuals learn to value the process rather than merely the endpoint. This shift in perspective strengthens perseverance, reduces the temptation to quit when immediate results are absent, and cultivates long-term resilience. The brain begins to see effort itself as intrinsically valuable, creating a sustainable cycle of growth and accomplishment. Challenges and setbacks are inevitable, yet rewarding progress helps mitigate their impact. When difficulties arise, acknowledging what has been achieved provides a foundation of confidence and motivation. Even partial completion or imperfect execution becomes an opportunity for recognition, preventing discouragement and maintaining momentum. Each small victory acts as an anchor, reminding the mind of its capability and reinforcing the habit of deliberate effort despite obstacles. To maximize effectiveness, align rewards with personal values. The most motivating reinforcement is closely tied to what matters most. If health is a priority, a reward might be a brief walk in nature. If learning is valued, a few minutes spent reading a favorite book can be particularly satisfying. This alignment ensures that reward strengthens not only the immediate task, but also broader life goals, creating a coherent system where daily effort builds toward meaningful outcomes. Gradually, the brain begins to internalize the cycle of effort and reward. The anticipation of small recognition becomes motivating, reducing reliance on external validation. Discipline becomes self-sustaining, and tasks that once felt burdensome or tedious transform into opportunities for incremental accomplishment. The cumulative effect of consistent recognition is profound. Over weeks and months, small daily actions compound into significant lasting progress across multiple domains of life. Immediate application starts with clear, actionable steps. Define a small task that contributes to a larger objective. Decide on a meaningful but simple reward. Track completion visibly, and reflect briefly on progress at the end of the day. Perform this routine consistently, adjusting rewards or tasks to maintain engagement and challenge. Over time, expand the complexity or difficulty of tasks, ensuring that reward continues to reinforce progress without replacing intrinsic motivation. The discipline of rewarding incremental progress daily shapes the mind to value persistence and recognize growth in real time. It transforms effort into a tangible, positive experience rather than a source of stress or frustration. By consciously acknowledging every small success, neural pathways are strengthened, emotional resilience is enhanced, and motivation becomes a steady current rather than a fleeting spark. Each day, each action, each reward compounds into a life characterized by deliberate progress, consistent growth, and the quiet satisfaction of mastery. Ultimately, the practice is an exercise in both patience and awareness. Recognizing small victories teaches the mind to appreciate the journey, strengthens the habit of deliberate action, and creates a feedback system that continually reinforces growth. The brain learns that effort produces reward, that perseverance is meaningful, and that steady, consistent action ultimately leads to significant achievement. By committing to daily acknowledgement of progress, the foundation of long-term success is built quietly, persistently, and irreversibly. Number 5. Embrace failure as learning. Failure is often feared, avoided, and misunderstood, yet it is one of the most powerful tools for growth. The moment when plans collapse, efforts falter, or outcomes disappoint is not an endpoint. It is a signal, a lesson, and a catalyst for improvement. Every mistake carries information that cannot be gained through effortless success. Learning to interpret failure accurately and intentionally allows the mind to transform frustration into insight, discouragement into strategy, and defeat into forward momentum. The practice of embracing failure requires shifting perspective, examining consequences, and extracting actionable wisdom from each setback. The first step is redefining what failure means. It is not a reflection of identity, intelligence, or capability. Rather, it is an event, a process, a temporary result that provides data about action, method, and execution. When failure is depersonalized, the emotional burden decreases, and the mind is free to analyze objectively. This perspective allows one to confront mistakes without self-condemnation, and to recognize that failure is an inevitable, even necessary part of the journey toward mastery. Observation is critical. After an unsuccessful attempt, pause to identify exactly what went wrong and why. Detail is essential. Which decisions, actions, or assumptions contributed to the result? What signals were ignored, and where did judgment falter? Avoid vague assessments or self-criticism. Focus on facts. Writing these observations down creates clarity, prevents repetition of the same errors, and transforms confusion into structured understanding. The brain responds to clear patterns, so mapping failure into identifiable causes is the foundation for meaningful adjustment. Failure also exposes hidden assumptions. Every mistake reveals areas where planning, knowledge, or preparation was incomplete. These gaps, once recognized, become opportunities for growth. If a project fails due to missed deadlines, it may indicate weak time management strategies. If a physical goal is unmet, it may highlight weaknesses in technique or endurance. Each failure uncovers a blind spot, and each identified blind spot is a doorway to competence. By approaching mistakes as discovery rather than defeat, resilience is strengthened and skill development is accelerated. Emotional regulation is essential in this process. Failure naturally triggers frustration, embarrassment, or even shame. These emotions are signals to the body and mind that something meaningful is at stake. Instead of suppressing these reactions, observe and label them, This is disappointment. This is irritation. This is anxiety about public perception. Acknowledging emotion without judgment allows energy to be redirected toward reflection and strategy rather than rumination or avoidance. Emotional clarity transforms the disruptive power of failure into fuel for disciplined action. Actionable experimentation emerges from every failure. Once the root causes and contributing factors are identified, design a deliberate response, test new approaches, adjust techniques, and refine timing. Treat the next attempt as a controlled experiment informed by prior outcomes. The mind begins to link errors with adaptation, and repeated cycles of effort, failure, and adjustment cultivate the habit of continuous improvement. Success becomes a product of iterative learning, not luck or chance. Failure also enhances creativity and problem solving. When one outcome does not work, the brain is forced to explore alternative paths, generating solutions that might not have been considered otherwise. Constraints imposed by unsuccessful attempts encourage innovation, flexible thinking, and mental agility. By embracing failure, the mind expands its toolkit for addressing challenges, producing strategies that are more robust, adaptive, and resourceful than those developed under conditions of uninterrupted success. Repetition with reflection is key. It is not enough to fail once and move forward blindly. Repeated failures with attentive analysis generate the deepest learning. Each iteration reinforces neural circuits associated with adaptation, critical thinking, and resilience. Over time, the mind internalizes patterns of cause and effect, becoming capable of anticipating potential pitfalls before they occur. This cumulative effect turns prior setbacks into predictive intelligence, where the lessons of failure directly inform future execution. Failure also teaches humility and perspective. It reveals limitations without diminishing potential, exposing vulnerabilities without eroding value. Humility is not weakness. It is the awareness of what is unknown and the willingness to learn. By confronting inadequacies openly, the mind develops a realistic understanding of strengths and weaknesses, enabling more strategic action. Perspective emerges as well. A single failure is rarely catastrophic when viewed as one data point in a larger trajectory of growth and effort. Building a system for learning from failure reinforces its benefits. Keep a log or journal of each setback, detailing the circumstances, choices, reactions, and lessons. Review this record regularly to identify trends, recurring obstacles, and improvement areas. Over time, this creates a library of experiential knowledge that the brain can access proactively, reducing the likelihood of repeating the same errors and enhancing confidence in handling new challenges. The process of reframing failure strengthens perseverance. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity rather than a deterrent. When the mind expects and welcomes mistakes as part of deliberate practice, effort becomes consistent, focus remains unshaken, and the fear of failure diminishes. The neural circuitry that once reacted with avoidance gradually shifts toward engagement, forming patterns of persistence, adaptability, and problem-solving under pressure. Embracing failure also encourages calculated risk-taking. Individuals who fear mistakes often limit their efforts to what is safe, predictable, or familiar. Viewing failure as fuel changes the dynamic. The mind assesses risk strategically, experiments boldly, and treats errors as temporary learning events. This fosters courage, initiative, and an expanded capacity for achievement, because fear no longer dictates choices. Self-compassion complements analytical reflection. Recognize that failure is universal and not a measure of worth. Treat mistakes as opportunities to strengthen practice, rather than evidence of inadequacy. Compassion reduces the destructive emotional impact of setbacks, enabling the mind to focus on solutions rather than regrets. The combination of compassion and disciplined reflection accelerates adaptation and maintains motivation over the long term. Action steps include: select one task or project, attempt it fully, and observe the outcome. If the result falls short, document what occurred, identify contributing factors, and plan corrective adjustments. Apply these insights to the next attempt deliberately, noting improvement and further lessons. Repeat this cycle consistently, reinforcing both analytical skill and emotional resilience. Over time, the brain associates failure with information, insight, and opportunity, rather than with fear, guilt, or discouragement. Failure also strengthens focus on process over outcome. The more one concentrates on effective action, learning, and adjustment, the less the mind is overwhelmed by external metrics of success or comparison. The brain begins to value the journey of mastery itself, where effort, experimentation, and correction are inherently rewarding. This shift reduces anxiety and allows for consistent, high-quality performance, even when external validation is delayed or uncertain. Ultimately, embracing failure as learning fuel cultivates a mindset of unstoppable growth. Each setback provides information, each misstep offers insight, and each repeated attempt builds competence and confidence. The nervous system, mind, and emotions are trained to see challenge as opportunity rather than threat. Over time, failure ceases to be a source of fear and becomes a reliable mechanism for advancement, turning every mistake into a stepping stone toward mastery, resilience, and enduring achievement. Number 6. Anchor habits with emotional triggers. Habits are not formed in isolation. They are deeply intertwined with the emotional context in which they occur. The most enduring behaviors are those connected to feelings, reactions, or emotional states that naturally arise in daily life. When a habit is anchored to an emotional trigger, it becomes automatic, resilient, and remarkably difficult to break. Emotional triggers act as signals to the brain. They alert attention, prime action, and create a predictable pattern. The key is to identify consistent emotions that can serve as anchors and pair them deliberately with productive behaviors. Over time, this pairing transforms effort from a conscious choice into an almost instinctive response. The first step is awareness. Observe the emotional currents in your daily life. Moments of anticipation, tension, excitement, boredom, or fatigue. These emotions appear repeatedly, often tied to specific cues, such as waking, finishing a meal, arriving at work, or closing a meeting. Each recurring emotion represents a potential trigger, a reliable signal for action. Recognize them clearly without judgment. Mapping these emotional touchpoints is crucial, because habits anchored to strong, identifiable feelings are far more likely to stick than those attempted in a neutral or arbitrary context. Pair each habit with a precise, emotional signal. For example, if the goal is to meditate daily, link it to the feeling of relief that arises after finishing a stressful meeting. When that emotional state occurs, immediately engage in the practice. If the habit is to write daily, associate it with the satisfaction of finishing a task that required attention, or the calm that follows completing a workout. The emotional trigger provides context, meaning, and urgency, making the habit feel necessary rather than optional. Consistency strengthens the association. The brain learns patterns through repetition. Each time the emotional state occurs and the habit is executed, neural circuits strengthen, making future responses faster and more automatic. If the pairing is inconsistent, the habit struggles to solidify. Anchor habits to emotions that reliably appear multiple times per day or during predictable periods to create a robust and repeatable chain. Over time, the act itself becomes emotionally satisfying because it is seamlessly integrated into the emotional rhythm of daily life. Leverage both positive and negative emotions strategically. Positive emotions like joy, relief, or anticipation can motivate action, while mild discomfort, tension, or urgency can serve as cues to take corrective or disciplined action. For example, the stress of a looming deadline can be a trigger to initiate focused work, rather than procrastinate. The trick is to identify emotions that naturally arise and link them deliberately to behaviors that transform them into productive outcomes. Emotional triggers act as accelerators for habit formation, turning internal states into reliable catalysts for action. Micro-habits anchored to emotions are especially effective. Start with small, manageable actions that can be completed immediately when the emotional signal occurs. If the goal is to practice gratitude, write a single sentence in a journal each time a feeling of irritation arises. If the objective is physical movement, do a 5-minute stretch whenever you notice fatigue. Small habits are easier to link to emotional states and create immediate reinforcement, increasing the likelihood of long-term adherence. Each repetition strengthens both the emotional habit association and the neural pathways responsible for automatic execution. Visualization enhances the effect of emotional anchors. Before the habit is performed, mentally rehearse the scenario where the emotional trigger appears and imagine responding instantly with the desired action. This mental simulation primes the brain, reinforces the association, and reduces hesitation in real time. Visualization also allows testing and refining of the pairing, observing whether the chosen emotional state reliably triggers the behavior, and adjusting the cue or habit as needed. Over repeated practice, mental rehearsal makes the automatic response sharper and more confident. Combine emotional triggers with environmental cues for added potency. The physical context amplifies emotional signals, creating multiple layers of reinforcement. A specific location, object, or routine can act as a secondary cue that strengthens the habit. For example, a particular chair, room, or desk can be linked to focused work, while a specific cup or setting signals reflection or journaling. Emotional triggers paired with environmental anchors create a robust system in which both internal and external signals cue desired behaviors consistently. Reflection and adjustment are essential components. Track the effectiveness of each emotional anchor. Does it reliably elicit the habit? Are there moments when the emotional cue appears but the behavior fails to occur? Analyze these instances to refine the pairing. Perhaps the emotion is too subtle, too fleeting, or inconsistent. Modify the habit or the emotional association to increase alignment. This reflective process ensures the habit is continually reinforced and adapted to evolving circumstances, preventing stagnation or regression. Rewards enhance the emotional habit connection. Immediate reinforcement, even subtle, strengthens the brain's recognition of the pattern. Completing a habit after the emotional trigger should be paired with a sense of satisfaction, relief, or pride. Over time, the habit itself becomes inherently rewarding because the emotional anchor reliably precedes it, and the brain begins to anticipate the positive outcome. This anticipation increases the probability of repeated execution and builds a lasting cycle of disciplined behavior. Habit stacking magnifies the impact of emotional triggers. Link a new habit to an existing emotionally charged behavior. For instance, if brushing teeth consistently evokes a sense of routine completion, attach a new micro-habit immediately afterward. If a sense of accomplishment arises after finishing a workout, follow it with a short meditation session. The emotional resonance of the established habit primes the brain to accept the new behavior more easily, reducing reflex and accelerating habit formation. Anchoring habits to emotional triggers also cultivates self-awareness. Observing one's internal state and recognizing the subtleties of emotional patterns strengthens introspection and emotional intelligence. This heightened awareness allows anticipation of emotional cues before they peak, creating an opportunity for proactive habit engagement rather than reactive responses. Over time, the mind becomes attuned to internal rhythms, using emotional intelligence as a tool for sustained personal growth. Emotional triggers make habits resilient under stress. When external circumstances fluctuate, motivation alone is insufficient to maintain behavior. Internal emotional signals, however, provide reliable guidance. A sense of tension, boredom, or excitement can serve as a prompt to act regardless of distractions or fatigue. Anchored habits continue to function even under adverse conditions, because the emotional trigger bypasses reliance on willpower alone. The mind learns to respond automatically, creating a dependable system of action that is less vulnerable to environmental fluctuation. Integration into daily life ensures permanence. Embed the habit-emotion pairing into multiple daily scenarios. The more frequently the anchor appears and the habit is executed, the stronger the neural reinforcement. Eventually, the behavior becomes a default response to the emotional cue, requiring minimal conscious effort. This is the essence of automaticity. The habit is no longer optional, but a natural extension of emotional experience. The brain learns to anticipate the behavior, producing smoother, more efficient execution with less deliberation. Action steps include identifying recurrent emotional states, linking them to precise behaviors, starting with small, manageable actions, tracking execution, adjusting the pairing based on effectiveness, and reflecting on the results. Reinforce each success with subtle rewards and integrate environmental cues where possible. Repeat consistently, increasing complexity or intensity gradually, ensuring the habit remains aligned with the emotional signal. Over time, the association becomes durable, creating a network of automatic behaviors anchored firmly in the rhythm of daily life. Anchoring habits with emotional triggers transforms intention into action. It converts abstract goals into concrete, automatic behavior, driven by internal states that naturally arise. The mind learns to recognize opportunity and emotion, respond with precision, and maintain consistency despite distraction or fatigue. Through careful observation, deliberate pairing, and consistent reinforcement, habits become inseparable from the emotional experiences that surround them, creating a resilient foundation for personal growth, discipline, and sustained achievement. Number 7. Practice focus. Under stressful conditions, focus is a fragile resource, one that the mind naturally resists sustaining under pressure. Stress taxes attention, scatters thought, and amplifies distraction. Yet, the ability to concentrate deliberately amid tension is a skill that can be trained, honed, and strengthened like a muscle. Practicing focus under stressful conditions is not about achieving perfection immediately. It is about conditioning the mind to operate effectively when stakes are high, when uncertainty looms, and when distractions abound. Mastering this capacity transforms challenges into opportunities, pressure into clarity, and chaos into controlled action. The foundation begins with awareness of internal reactions to stress. The body signals tension through increased heart rate, rapid breathing, tightened muscles, or restless energy. The mind reacts with racing thoughts, catastrophizing, or scattered attention. Recognizing these physiological and mental responses without judgment is the first step. Awareness creates a pause, a space in which deliberate focus can be chosen rather than impulsive reaction. Observing the sensations and acknowledging their presence reduces their unconscious control over action. Stress becomes a signal to engage intentionally, not a trigger for distraction. Controlled exposure is essential. Begin by introducing moderate stress while performing tasks that require attention. This could be time-limited work, challenging problem-solving exercises, or simulated high-pressure scenarios. The key is to create a situation that triggers tension without overwhelming the system. By incrementally increasing difficulty, the mind adapts to operating under stress. Each session reinforces neural pathways associated with sustained focus, emotional regulation, and cognitive resilience. The brain begins to perceive pressure as a training signal rather than a threat, building mental fortitude over time. Anchoring attention is a practical technique. Choose a specific element of the task, an object, phrase, or visual cue, and return to it whenever distraction arises. This anchor becomes a stable reference point, a mental foothold that prevents drifting in the face of stress. Anchoring strengthens attentional control by training the brain to recover quickly from interruptions, maintaining continuity of thought and action, even when the environment is unpredictable. Over time, the act of recentering becomes automatic, ensuring that focus persists, despite external or internal pressures. Stress resilience is enhanced by deliberate breathing techniques. Breath regulates the autonomic nervous system, stabilizes physiological responses, and creates a calm platform from which the mind can operate. Deep, measured inhalations followed by slow exhalations signal the body that survival is intact, allowing concentration to return to the task. Breathing serves as a continuous feedback mechanism. When tension rises, controlled respiration restores clarity and attentional precision. Combining focus practice with conscious breathing teaches the brain to operate under duress without succumbing to panic or scattered thought. Cognitive framing strengthens the capacity to focus under pressure. The mind interprets stress based on perception. If pressure is seen as a threat, attention fragments. If stress is reframed as a challenge, focus improves. Approach stressful conditions as exercises for mental agility, opportunities to refine strategy, and situations in which skill is being sharpened. Reframing transforms physiological arousal from a source of distraction into a tool that energizes concentration enabling deliberate engagement with the task rather than avoidance or overwhelm. Simulated high-stakes scenarios accelerate adaptation, recreating conditions of urgency, complexity, or unpredictability allows the brain to rehearse responses in a controlled manner. Practicing presentations under time constraints, solving puzzles while managing interruptions, or completing physical tasks with added mental load strengthens the ability to sustain attention when the environment is genuinely unpredictable. Repetition under these conditions produces a cognitive tolerance for pressure, training the mind to maintain sharp focus regardless of stress intensity. Mindful observation enhances performance. While executing a task under stress, observe thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations without judgment. Notice when attention drifts, when tension escalates, and when emotional reactions emerge. Labeling these experiences, this is frustration, this is distraction, this is impatience, creates distance between impulse and response. Awareness allows refocusing without self-criticism, maintaining momentum and preventing temporary lapses from escalating into complete loss of attention. Mindful observation converts stress into structured information for deliberate action. Task segmentation improves focus. Complex or high-pressure challenges often overwhelm because the brain attempts to process too much simultaneously. Break the task into manageable components, concentrating on one segment at a time. Completing each segment reinforces a sense of control, reduces cognitive overload, and maintains engagement. This method allows consistent application of attention under stress, producing a rhythm of sustained focus that can extend across multiple layers of complexity. Each segment mastered strengthens confidence and reinforces neural pathways for deliberate concentration. Progressive overload applies to cognitive endurance as well. Extend the duration or intensity of stress gradually, mirroring techniques used in physical training. The mind strengthens when consistently challenged slightly beyond its current capacity. Over time, tasks that once caused scattered attention or anxiety can be approached with calm focus. The nervous system adapts to higher levels of arousal, producing an internal environment in which concentration can be sustained even under increasingly demanding conditions. This systematic progression creates a durable capacity for focused action. Reflection reinforces adaptation. After completing a stressful practice session, review performance with objectivity. Identify moments when focus was strong, when lapses occurred, and which strategies restored attention effectively. This feedback loop consolidates learning, reinforces successful tactics, and highlights areas for refinement. Reflection allows the brain to connect effort, outcome, and adaptive strategy, producing continual improvement in both attentional control and stress tolerance. Over repeated cycles, reflection strengthens the link between deliberate practice and measurable enhancement of focus. Emotional regulation supports sustained attention. Recognize that frustration, impatience, or self-doubt will arise under pressure. Rather than suppressing these emotions, observe and acknowledge them while returning attention to the task. Emotional turbulence is a natural response to high stakes, but disciplined focus does not require the absence of emotion. Training the mind to maintain clarity amidst emotional intensity builds resilience, enabling consistent performance when real-world stressors appear. Multisensory engagement reinforces attentional stability. In situations where stress could fragment focus, deliberately engage senses relevant to the task. Visual cues, auditory markers, or tactile feedback anchor awareness in the present moment, reducing susceptibility to distraction. The brain responds to multisensory alignment by concentrating more effectively, producing a state of immersive engagement even under challenging circumstances. Sensory anchoring supports sustained cognitive performance and deepens the capacity for presence. Incremental progress matters. Practicing focus under stress is a skill developed gradually. Start with brief sessions, increasing duration, intensity, and complexity over time. Track improvements to reinforce motivation and provide measurable evidence of growth. Each successful session strengthens both cognitive resilience and confidence, creating a feedback loop in which deliberate practice under pressure becomes increasingly natural and effective. Immediate application includes designing daily exercises that combine task difficulty with controlled stress, introduce time pressure, minor distractions, or simulated unpredictability. Pair with anchoring strategies, mindful observation and controlled breathing. Reflect after each session, noting strategies that improved concentration and identifying areas for refinement. Repeat consistently, gradually intensifying conditions to build durable attentional strength. Mastering focus under stressful conditions reshapes both mind and behavior. The brain learns to operate efficiently amidst tension, distractions lose their power and effort becomes deliberate rather than reactive. Cognitive endurance grows, emotional regulation improves, and performance stabilizes under pressure. Through consistent, structured practice, stress transforms from an obstacle into a tool for sharpening the mind, making resilience and focus a reliable foundation for both achievement and personal growth. Number 8. Break tasks into micro-achievements. Large goals often feel impossible because the brain perceives the totality of effort as overwhelming. The mind naturally resists extended, undefined challenges, interpreting them as threats to energy and resources. The solution lies in deconstructing any task into the smallest possible actions, micro-achievable steps that feel immediately attainable. These bite-sized segments transform daunting objectives into manageable sequences, creating momentum and making consistent progress inevitable. Each small completion acts as both proof of capability and motivation for the next step, reinforcing discipline and establishing a rhythm of accomplishment. Begin by identifying the ultimate goal in concrete terms. Clarity is essential. Vague aspirations, like get in shape or write a book, lack actionable specificity. Define what completion looks like in measurable, observable terms. Once the endpoint is precise, dissect it into a sequence of smaller components. For example, instead of aiming to write an entire chapter in one session, focus on producing a single paragraph. Instead of attempting to run 5 kilometers immediately, commit to running 500 meters. The micro-achievable approach leverages the brain's preference for tangible, short-term objectives. Each micro-step should feel possible without excessive strain. The objective is not to avoid challenge entirely, but to create consistent success signals that reinforce capability. When the brain experiences repeated, immediate wins, dopamine pathways are activated, and motivation becomes self-sustaining. The process shifts perception. Effort is no longer an overwhelming mountain, but a sequence of small, conquerable rises. Each incremental completion reinforces confidence, builds momentum, and cultivates a sense of progress that fuels persistence over time. Micro-achievable tasks also reduce procrastination. Resistance arises when the mind perceives a task as too large or complex. By scaling down, the initial barrier diminishes dramatically. The first step is no longer intimidating. It is something that can be executed immediately. Starting becomes effortless, and momentum naturally develops as one micro-task follows another. This compounding effect demonstrates that large outcomes are not achieved in a single leap, but through the accumulation of tiny, deliberate actions consistently applied. Visualization complements micro-task execution. Mentally rehearsing each small step creates clarity and prepares the brain for action. Picture the sequence, what is required, how it feels to execute, and the immediate reward of completion. Visualizing the process not only primes neural circuits for action, but also reduces anxiety about the broader task. Each micro-achievable step becomes familiar, predictable, and psychologically manageable, making sustained effort under pressure far more feasible. Prioritization enhances effectiveness. Microsteps should follow a logical sequence that maximizes efficiency and impact. Identify which small actions unlock subsequent progress, which are foundational, and which can be deferred. Not all microtasks are equal. Some carry higher leverage. By tackling high-priority actions first, momentum builds faster, confidence increases, and the sense of control over the overall goal strengthens. The brain interprets this structure as order, reducing mental friction and making persistence easier. Time-boxing microsteps adds focus. Allocate a fixed, short period to complete each segment, such as 10 or 15 minutes. This creates urgency, encourages concentration, and prevents tasks from expanding unnecessarily. The time limit transforms effort into a contained challenge, sharpening attention and reducing avoidance. Completing a micro-task within a designated window creates a small victory, reinforcing the behavior and producing repeated feedback that the brain interprets as progress. Reflection reinforces learning and adaptability. After completing each micro-step, pause briefly to assess performance. What worked well? What obstacles arose? How could the process be improved for the next step? This continuous feedback loop ensures that execution becomes more efficient over time. Reflection transforms routine task completion into active skill development, strengthening the mind's ability to plan, execute, and adapt effectively under varying circumstances. Micro-achievable tasks also improve emotional regulation. Large, intimidating goals can provoke stress, frustration, or self-doubt. Breaking them down into smaller, immediate actions reduces the emotional weight of each step, making effort more manageable. Each completion generates satisfaction and reinforces confidence, counteracting negative feelings that could otherwise hinder persistence. Emotionally, the mind begins to associate effort with reward, rather than anxiety, creating a sustainable cycle of action. Incremental scaling enhances mastery. Once initial microtasks are mastered, complexity or size can be gradually increased. This progressive approach prevents stagnation, maintains engagement, and stretches capabilities without overwhelming the system. For example, after completing short writing segments, expand to longer paragraphs, then pages. After brief exercise sessions, increase distance or intensity. Gradual escalation allows the brain to adapt steadily, building both skill and resilience in a controlled, measurable way. Microtasks also reveal hidden inefficiencies or gaps in preparation. Breaking a complex project into small actions exposes overlooked requirements, dependencies, or obstacles. Identifying these early allows for targeted intervention rather than last-minute scrambling. The brain is better able to anticipate challenges and plan contingencies, improving both efficiency and effectiveness. This methodical approach fosters strategic thinking alongside disciplined execution. Integration with reward systems amplifies progress. Each completed micro-step should carry some form of immediate reinforcement, whether internal satisfaction, brief reflection, or a small external reward. This links effort to positive feedback, strengthening neural pathways associated with persistence and reinforcing the habit of taking consistent action. Over time, the act of completing micro-tasks becomes inherently rewarding, creating an internal drive that sustains long-term effort. Visualization of cumulative progress magnifies motivation. Even if each micro-task feels minor, mentally connecting the small steps to the overarching goal reinforces purpose and meaning. The brain perceives the accumulation of effort as tangible progress, making sustained action feel both necessary and achievable. This perspective mitigates fatigue and frustration, ensuring that momentum persists even when individual tasks are repetitive or mundane. The practice also builds mental resilience. Successfully completing small tasks under varying conditions teaches the mind that effort produces results regardless of obstacles. Confidence grows not from the magnitude of any single achievement, but from the repeated proof that consistent action yields measurable progress. This reinforces self-efficacy, encouraging persistence, adaptability, and the willingness to engage with increasingly complex challenges. Action steps for immediate implementation include: identify a large goal, deconstruct it into the smallest actionable components, sequence them logically, assign brief time blocks for each, complete each micro-task sequentially, reflect on performance and obstacles, reinforce progress with immediate feedback, and gradually increase difficulty or complexity. Repeat consistently, establish momentum, and create a reliable automatic pattern of progress. Breaking tasks into micro-achievable steps transforms effort into a manageable, motivating process. It reshapes perception, turning overwhelming objectives into clear, actionable sequences. The mind experiences repeated wins, momentum builds, confidence strengthens, and cumulative progress becomes tangible. Through this method, Daunting ambitions are no longer paralyzing. They become a series of deliberate actions, each one reinforcing discipline, persistence, and the steady march toward meaningful accomplishment. Number 9. Condition mind with deliberate repetition. The mind thrives on patterns. Neural circuits strengthen through repeated activation, and behaviors become more automatic the more frequently they are executed. Deliberate repetition is not mindless redundancy. It is purposeful, focused, and designed to ingrain skill, discipline, and resilience into the neural architecture. Each repetition acts as a signal to the brain that the action is important, reinforcing connections, increasing efficiency, and ultimately making difficult tasks feel natural. Conditioning the mind through repetition transforms effort from conscious struggle into instinctive competence, building a foundation for both performance and personal mastery. The process begins with clarity of action. To repeat deliberately, the task or behavior must be fully understood and defined. Ambiguity weakens repetition because the mind cannot reinforce what is not clearly recognized. Break down the skill, habit, or process into precise, observable components. Understand not only the physical or mental steps, but also the underlying principles that govern successful execution. This precision ensures that repetition strengthens the correct patterns rather than reinforcing mistakes or inefficiencies. Focus is essential. Repetition without attention produces limited benefit. Each cycle should be executed with full awareness of motion, thought, or strategy. Observe every detail, the sequence of movements, the rhythm of thinking, or the emotional state during execution. Attention amplifies the effect of repetition by creating rich neural patterns, enabling the brain to learn more deeply and retain skills longer. Mindful repetition is the difference between shallow habit and profound mastery. Consistency accelerates the conditioning process. Repetition must occur regularly, ideally daily, to maximize neural adaptation. Sporadic attempts produce weaker pathways and slower progress. Establish a schedule that allows repeated engagement with the task, even in small increments. Short, frequent sessions often outperform long, infrequent ones because the brain benefits from continuous reinforcement. Over time, each cycle of repetition compounds, producing automaticity, precision, and confidence. Deliberate repetition requires active evaluation. Each iteration should be examined for correctness, efficiency, and effectiveness. Identify errors or inconsistencies immediately, adjust execution, and repeat with refined technique. This feedback loop ensures that repetition does not merely reinforce effort, but reinforces quality. Mistakes left uncorrected solidify into habits, while conscious adjustment transforms repetition into a powerful tool for skill enhancement and personal growth. Mental rehearsal complements physical or cognitive repetition. Visualizing the task in precise detail activates similar neural circuits as actual execution. Combining mental practice with physical or cognitive repetition multiplies effectiveness, accelerating mastery. Imagine performing the task flawlessly, incorporating sensory detail, emotional state, and strategic decision-making. This combination of internal rehearsal and external execution strengthens pathways faster than practice alone, conditioning the mind to respond with accuracy, efficiency, and confidence. Gradual escalation ensures sustained adaptation. Start with manageable intensity, duration, or complexity, and increase progressively. The brain strengthens under challenge but can be overwhelmed by sudden excessive load. By scaling difficulty incrementally, each repetition reinforces capacity without triggering discouragement or burnout. This deliberate pacing enhances endurance, precision, and resilience, producing mental conditioning that persists under both routine and demanding circumstances. Deliberate repetition also conditions emotional responses. Difficult tasks often provoke frustration, doubt, or discomfort. Repeating under these conditions teaches the mind to tolerate emotional tension while maintaining focus and performance. Each successful repetition under mild stress strengthens confidence and reduces anxiety over time. Emotional conditioning is as important as cognitive or physical conditioning, allowing the mind to operate with stability, clarity, and composure, even when challenges intensify. Rhythmic patterns enhance learning. Repetition in structured sequences, rather than random attempts, creates predictability that the brain can efficiently encode. For example, practicing a movement or thought pattern in a fixed order allows the nervous system to anticipate subsequent steps, reinforcing coordination and flow. Consistent rhythm also builds mental endurance, making the task feel more natural and reducing cognitive strain over repeated cycles. Environmental consistency supports conditioning. Performing repetition in stable contexts reduces extraneous variables that can interfere with learning. A consistent workspace, timing, or set of cues allows the brain to focus on the pattern being reinforced rather than processing distractions. Once mastery emerges in a controlled setting, variations can be introduced gradually to adapt skill and attention to real-world unpredictability. This sequence ensures strong foundation before flexibility is tested. Tracking progress amplifies impact. Recording each repetition, improvement, and correction creates tangible evidence of growth. The brain responds to visible feedback. Observing repeated success reinforces motivation, deepens engagement, and strengthens persistence. Journals, checklists, or digital trackers provide accountability and clarity, transforming repetition into measurable accomplishment. This process converts abstract effort into concrete progression, sustaining momentum even when immediate results feel subtle. Incorporate deliberate pauses to consolidate learning. Rest between repetitions allows the brain to encode patterns, process errors, and integrate improvements. Overtraining or mindless repetition can create fatigue and diminish returns. Strategic breaks ensure that each repetition contributes maximally to conditioning, producing durable mental and neural adaptation. The rhythm of action and rest strengthens retention and skill stability over the long term. Deliberate repetition fosters self-discipline. The act of showing up consistently, performing with attention, and refining technique trains the mind to value persistence over convenience. Over time, repeated engagement with effort produces habit, resilience, and a strong internal drive. The brain begins to anticipate effort as normal, rather than resisting it, reducing reliance on motivation alone. Discipline emerges naturally from structured repetition and deliberate focus. Repetition under variable conditions enhances flexibility. Once foundational patterns are established, practice under different circumstances, changes in environment, timing, or pressure, ensures adaptability. The mind learns to maintain performance despite unpredictability, solidifying both skill and confidence. This variability prevents rigidity and prepares the brain to execute effectively in real-world dynamic situations. Deliberate repetition is not static. It evolves to meet the demands of mastery and resilience. Deliberate repetition cultivates attention to nuance. Repeated cycles expose subtle variations, errors, or opportunities for improvement that single attempts cannot reveal. The mind becomes sensitive to detail, developing precision in both thought and action. This heightened awareness strengthens learning capacity, enabling refinement of complex skills and increasing efficiency in execution over time. Action steps include: define the task with precision, execute it consciously with attention to detail, incorporate mental rehearsal, evaluate performance after each attempt, adjust technique as needed, repeat consistently at regular intervals, track progress, incorporate strategic rest, and gradually escalate complexity. Once mastery emerges, introduce variation to test adaptability and reinforce resilience. Each cycle of deliberate repetition strengthens neural pathways, refines skill, and conditions the mind to operate reliably under diverse conditions. Conditioning the mind through deliberate repetition is a process of sculpting resilience, focus, and capability. Each intentional repetition ingrains behavior, sharpens cognition, and stabilizes emotional responses. Over time, what once required effort becomes instinctive, effortless, and reliable. The combination of clarity, attention, evaluation, consistency, and gradual escalation transforms repetition from mundane practice into a powerful engine for personal growth, mastery, and enduring achievement. Number 10. Strengthen patience through delayed gratification. Patience is not merely a passive virtue. It is a skill cultivated through deliberate restraint and disciplined focus on long-term outcomes. The ability to postpone immediate satisfaction in favor of greater, more meaningful rewards is a cornerstone of personal mastery and mental resilience. Delayed gratification trains the mind to resist impulsive reactions, manage desire, and maintain consistent effort over time. This practice strengthens self-control, sharpens decision-making, and develops a perspective that prioritizes sustainable progress over fleeting pleasure. Patience cultivated through intentional delay becomes a powerful engine for achievement and fulfillment. The first step is understanding the impulse itself. Every desire or craving is a signal from the brain seeking instant reward, whether it is pleasure, relief, recognition, or comfort. These impulses are natural. Resisting them requires awareness and strategy. By observing the moment the urge arises, acknowledging it without judgment, the mind gains the power to respond consciously, rather than react reflexively. This awareness transforms the experience of desire into an opportunity for practice, turning instinct into a teacher of self-discipline. Setting clear, long-term goals provides direction for delayed gratification. When the mind understands the value of enduring effort and the magnitude of future rewards, resisting immediate impulses becomes meaningful. For example, saving money over months for a significant investment is more compelling when the purpose is tangible and emotionally resonant. Similarly, pursuing health goals, mastering a skill, or achieving professional milestones is easier when connected to a clear vision of future benefit. Clarity of purpose transforms patience from abstract effort into deliberate action. Start small with controlled experiments in delay. Postpone minor gratifications intentionally to build tolerance and mental strength. Delay drinking a cup of coffee, checking messages, or eating a snack by a few minutes, then gradually extend the interval. Each successful delay reinforces the neural circuits associated with self-control and patience. The brain learns to tolerate discomfort and recognize that deferring pleasure does not diminish satisfaction, but often amplifies it. Over time, small successes compound, creating a robust foundation for managing larger, more consequential impulses. Visualization enhances the power of delayed gratification. Imagine the end reward in vivid detail: the satisfaction of achievement, the relief of financial security, the pride of improved competence, or the fulfillment of completing a long-term project. Anchoring patience to a rich mental image strengthens motivation and makes the delay more tolerable. The brain begins to associate restraint with eventual reward, turning the act of waiting into a meaningful, purpose-driven process, rather than a source of frustration. Tracking progress reinforces commitment. Record each instance in which gratification is delayed successfully, noting the situation, duration, and emotional response. Seeing tangible evidence of improvement motivates continued practice and strengthens confidence in one's ability to wait. Reflection allows the mind to recognize patterns in desire, identify triggers for impulsive behavior, and refine strategies for managing urges. This systematic approach converts patience into a measurable, trainable skill. Introduce meaningful rituals that reinforce restraint. For example, before giving in to a desire, pause deliberately, take a few deep breaths, and assess whether immediate action aligns with long-term objectives. Creating a structured response ritual transforms instinctive reactions into intentional decision-making. Repetition of this process conditions the mind to associate measured action with control and foresight, reinforcing both patience and strategic thinking. Gradually increase the stakes of delayed gratification. Begin with minor, low-risk impulses, then apply the practice to more significant challenges. Resisting unnecessary purchases, postponing leisure for productive work, or maintaining consistent effort toward a long-term project despite fatigue or distraction. Scaling gradually ensures the brain adapts to the challenge, strengthening neural pathways associated with self-discipline and reducing the likelihood of burnout or impulsive failure. Mindful engagement with discomfort is essential. Delaying gratification often creates tension, longing, or impatience. Instead of avoiding these feelings, observe and experience them fully. Recognize the temporary nature of discomfort and its role in personal growth. This engagement not only builds tolerance, but also teaches the mind to extract information from emotional states, transforming frustration into insight and reinforcing resilience under pressure. Leverage accountability systems for reinforcement. Share long-term goals with trusted individuals or maintain a visible progress chart. External accountability enhances commitment, providing additional motivation to resist immediate impulses. When combined with internal awareness and deliberate reflection, accountability strengthens the integration of patience into daily routines, making restraint habitual rather than optional. Delayed gratification also fosters strategic thinking. Every postponed action requires evaluation. Is the immediate urge worth sacrificing the long-term benefit? This assessment trains the brain to prioritize outcomes, weigh costs and benefits, and make decisions aligned with long-term objectives. Over time, the mind internalizes this evaluative process, increasing wisdom, foresight, and the ability to act intentionally rather than reactively. Integrate environmental cues to support patience. Modify surroundings to reduce triggers for impulsive behavior. For example, keep tempting items out of sight, design workspaces that minimize distraction, or structure routines to reinforce productive delay. By shaping the environment to encourage restraint, the mind experiences fewer conflicts between impulse and intention, making patience easier to sustain consistently. The emotional payoff of delayed gratification strengthens persistence. Each successful postponement produces satisfaction, pride, and increased self-efficacy. The brain begins to associate effortful restraint with positive outcomes, reinforcing the habit of patience. This internal reward system becomes self-sustaining, gradually reducing dependence on external incentives and transforming delayed gratification into an intrinsically motivating practice. Practical application requires deliberate steps. Identify a meaningful long-term objective, recognize immediate impulses that may interfere, create structured opportunities to delay gratification, apply incremental challenges, observe emotional responses, reinforce success with reflection or minor rewards, and progressively scale difficulty. This approach conditions the mind to resist distraction, prioritize long-term benefit, and cultivate both focus and resilience. Patience developed through delayed gratification permeates all aspects of life. It strengthens decision-making, improves emotional stability, enhances goal attainment, and reduces vulnerability to impulsive mistakes. The brain becomes adept at resisting short-term discomfort for lasting gain, creating a mindset that values preparation, persistence, and strategic action over instant reward. Each delayed action compounds, gradually shaping a character capable of withstanding challenges and consistently pursuing meaningful outcomes. Ultimately, strengthening patience through delayed gratification is a disciplined exercise in foresight, resilience, and self-mastery. Each postponed impulse reinforces the brain's capacity for control. Each moment of restraint builds neural pathways associated with discipline, and each conscious choice to prioritize long-term benefit over immediate pleasure strengthens the foundation for sustained achievement. Over time, the practice cultivates not only the ability to wait, but also the wisdom to recognize the immense value of persistence, strategic restraint, and intentional action in shaping a fulfilling and accomplished life.